April 2026. 4 astronauts ride the Integrity space capsule around the far side of the lunar surface, the first crewed flight beyond low Earth orbit since the end of the Apollo program. In the decades since we last left the Moon, we mapped the human genome, we built a continuous orbital habitat, we put autonomous laboratories on Mars, and connected our entire planet with an instant digital network. Despite this progress, we stayed grounded. The answers for why we abandoned a destination we had already conquered aren't found in a grand mystery. They sit in unpublicized agency documents and forgotten budget lines. The original push to the lunar surface required a mobilization of resources that remains staggering today. 8 years of focus, 400,000 engineers and scientists, and $25 billion allocated to a single goal. That investment yielded definitive results. On July 20th, 1969, we arrived, and over the following 3 years, 12 specific individuals walked across a landscape no human had ever touched. They got there riding the Saturn V, a machine that stood 36 stories tall and burned thousands of gallons of propellant per second to generate 7.5 million pounds of thrust. How does an empire build the most complex machine in human history, only to throw away the blueprints? During that first lunar landing, 3 ground stations, including the Parkes radio telescope in Australia, recorded the raw telemetry and slow-scan television broadcasts onto high-quality magnetic tape. This was the primary physical evidence of our arrival, but magnetic tape was expensive, and by 1984, NASA needed storage for new satellite data. The agency issued a directive that allowed thousands of archival reels to be overwritten and repurposed. NASA erased the original slow-scan TV tapes of the Apollo 11 moon landing. The highest quality visual record of humanity's arrival on the lunar surface was permanently destroyed because the agency needed to reuse the tape. Does an agency dedicated to the preservation of human history simply forget what is on its most valuable tapes? The physical records aren't the only pieces of the story that slipped away. The individuals who actually piloted these vehicles have repeatedly offered first-hand accounts that complicate the official summaries. Gordon Cooper, one of the original Mercury 7 astronauts, testified before the United Nations in 1985. He stated on the record that he had personally witnessed extraterrestrial vehicles landing at Edwards Air Force Base, a report he claimed the government classified and dismissed. Edgar Mitchell, the 6th man to walk on the moon, spent the last 40 years of his life publicly stating that extraterrestrial contact was real and had been covered up by official policy. During Apollo 11, amateur ham radio operators monitoring NASA frequencies intercepted unbroadcast channels. Multiple civilian operators reported hearing Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin describe unidentified objects sitting on the rim of a lunar crater. When the men who risked their lives to fly these machines tell you the official report is incomplete, do you ignore them? While those accounts suggest hidden complexities, the financial collapse of the program is completely transparent. By 1969, the Vietnam War was draining $25 billion a year from the federal budget, forcing NASA to compete with massive domestic and military costs. Facing mounting domestic pressures, President Richard Nixon abruptly terminated the Apollo program in 1972, canceling the final planned missions to the lunar surface. The logistics were halted mid-stride. Apollo 18, 19, and 20 were already in advanced preparation, with hardware built and crews trained. Instead of launching, these Saturn V rockets were laid on their sides and left to rot in parking lots. Is the truth of our confinement to low Earth orbit a matter of alien interference, or simply the brutal math of political attrition? We did not return empty-handed. The Apollo missions brought back 842 pounds of lunar rock and regolith. We quickly learned that the surface dust acts like microscopic, sharp glass, scratching visors and infiltrating the environmental seals of the landers. That dust carried another strange property. Upon returning to the pressurized cabin and removing their helmets, every single astronaut reported that the lunar material smelled strongly of spent gunpowder, a chemical impossibility for rock exposed to a hard vacuum for billions of years. This chart compares the seismic wave decay of a solid body versus a partially hollow one. When NASA intentionally crashed spent Saturn V stages into the lunar surface, seismometers recorded the impact. Instead of a quick, muted thud, the moon reverberated for up to 55 minutes. If the moon is merely a dead rock captured by Earth's gravity, why does it react to impact like a manufactured sphere? Right now, on the surface of the moon, Neil Armstrong's boot print sits exactly as he left it. Because the moon lacks an atmosphere, there is no wind or rain to erode the soil. The tracks of the rovers, the descent stages of the landers, and the trails left by the astronauts are frozen perfectly in time, preserving the evidence of our abandonment. Before stepping off the surface for the last time, Commander Gene Cernan promised that we would return. He died in 2017, having lived his entire remaining life watching us break that promise. Gene Cernan's final words on the moon were a promise to return, one that remained unkept for 54 years. This half-century of absence leaves us to question if something unexplained truly halted human expansion into the stars.